welcome to the first episode of BoxTheBase, your home for baseball and boxing. And today I'm here with.
Jeremiah Geiger from Locked On Marlins.
And what is it that you do? Like, what do people know you for, or want you to know you for?
Yeah, so I had a podcast, Marlins 9, started that a couple years ago, and I just switched over to be the new host over at Locked On Marlins. So podcast every day for all the Marlins fans out there, and Monday through Friday. Excited to get that going, and excited to be here on your new podcast. Honored to be your guest here.
Yeah. And one thing I wanted to ask about you being, the Locked On Marlins host is what's it like taking over for somebody like Peter Pratt, who's very beloved in the Marlins fandom?
Yeah, it's definitely an honor to be able to step into his footsteps and follow after him because he's an absolute legend, and just want to do the best I can with the podcast every day. And I'm grateful to Peter. I've learned a lot from him. Had the honor of being on his show when he was the host of Locked On before. So it's exciting, and I am truly blessed.
Yeah, and I mean, talking about Peter, we all saw that he launched a new podcast on
Yep.
Twitter. That's pretty exciting, to have him back, I guess. Also exciting to have someone like you taking over for him. But the next point I wanted to get into, which I'm going to refer to my notebook here, is what got you into baseball, just to give the fans and people out there a little insight into what got you into baseball.
Yeah, so I was always a big football fan when I was a little kid. That was like my passion. I didn't follow baseball till I was about 11 years old, I'd say. And then I wanted to play baseball, and I started watching Major League Baseball and became a fan of the game pretty early on. Into 2013 is the first year I really paid attention. So 2014, I'm I'm watching the Marlins. It was a Marlins Mariners game, and I saw Giancarlo Stanton hit a walk-off grand slam. And after that, man, I just fell in love with the team, and it's been go Marlins ever since.
Yeah, I mean, for me, just because it's my first episode, I would let the people out there know I was in second grade, and funny enough, my school took a field trip to a game, like it
Oh,
was a day
nice.
game, and that was what 2012, and I just fell in love with it ever since.
Right on. Yeah, that's awesome.
mean, and my family's from Nicaragua, so back in Nicaragua, my grandfather used to play, and I just kind of felt a connection to it afterwards, and here I am now.
Yeah, no, it's a great sport, and I enjoy talking about it with fans like you, and it's just we're all fans and we love the game, and it's a great opportunity to be able to come onto a podcast like here and just discuss.
Definitely. So I was gonna ask, just as part of the intro of our guest, what team you're a fan of, but clearly, being that you're the host for Locked On Marlins and you're wearing a Marlins hat, so am I. We can both say we're Marlins fans, definitely.
Definitely, yeah,
Even though it's sometimes frustrating
yeah,
to be a
to
fan
say
of
the
this team,
least. It's
but
tough.
we get through it. Um, so in my next, I just wanted to kind of talk about the off season, really, because I feel like we've had a pretty interesting off season. Um, I was gonna do a segment where we talk about where Bregman and Alonso are gonna sign, but last night Jeff passed and dropped the bomb, and he was like, "Well, Alonso's going back to the Mets." So what do we think?
Yeah, I mean I think it's great for the Mets. I think he's one of the game's best power hitters, and they got him for relatively cheap. He didn't get what he wanted in terms of a long-term deal, but it feels like it's a 1-year prove it deal, $30 million. He can opt out, so he's got to have a great season. And for Marlins fans, it's just another player we gotta see all the time because
Yeah,
the Mets are loaded, the Phillies are loaded, the Braves are loaded. It's a stacked division right now. It only gets better
and
with
don't forget the
Alonso
Nationals.
return.
I think they're coming
Yep,
up
and
too.
they're up and coming for sure. They're
Yeah,
my dark horse team this year for sure.
yeah. I think I'll piggyback off of the same things you said. I think it's great for the Mets. I mean, I thought early on it should have just been a no brainer. Like they should have brought him back way earlier.
Yeah,
The
I
city of
agree.
the city of New York loves him. He's had amazing moments. I think the best one was probably his playoff homer last year. You know, bringing them back from the dead, basically. And I mean, it makes sense. As a Marlins fan, do I like it? Not at all. I am very vocal that I don't like the Mets at all. They're probably the team I hate the most, if I'm going to be honest. Hate is a strong word, but I stand behind it. And knowing that Pete Alonso, every time I see him, I fear he's going to hit a home run, and he frankly has against us. I'm not a really big stats guy. I don't search up a lot of stats, but I'd imagine his career stat line versus the Marlins is like off the table.
Yeah.
So, I mean, good for the Mets. They kept their first baseman, a really good one, in my opinion. I think it's tough to find that kind of power, consistent power in today's game. Like he might have his ups and downs throughout the season. At the end of the season, you're gonna look at his stat sheet: 40 homers, maybe 50, and
Yeah.
he's
I
gonna.
mean, he's
And I believe
consistent.
consistent, yes, and I believe he's gonna do that till he retires. He's the kind of person I don't think and player who's gonna lose his power.
No, it's he's one of those players whose game is all about the power. He's not a great defender. He doesn't hit for a ton of average, but the power's been there since he debuted. And for the Mets, it's a huge return for them. And for Peter Alonso, I mean, Polar Bear Pete, you said the playoff home run. He's a legend in New York, and I'm sure we're gonna unfortunately see some more home runs against us.
And for the next player that I think is the last remaining big player in the free agent market is Alex Bregman.
Yeah.
Where do you think he goes, or where would you like him to go?
So there's a few different options if you're Bregman. I don't think he's gonna get the deal that he wants, and I just don't think the multi-year deal, 6 years, 5 years, is gonna happen. I could be wrong. I could see something happen maybe a couple years with an opt out if he goes the way that Alonso did, where, well, the market's not where I want. Let me take a big payday for this year, opt out, and reevaluate. The issue with Bregman is he's getting up there in age. His production has started to slightly decline. For a long contract, I don't see him getting what he wants. But that being said, I could see the Detroit Tigers being a fit. I could see the Cubs being a fit. I think Chicago and Houston have had this almost little like connection in terms of trades. Kyle Tucker, Ryan Presley heading back to Chicago. So could Bregman be a fit and reunite with a couple of his teammates there? That I'm leaning that way, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I agree with your pick of the Tigers. Like, that's the team that I
It
would like
makes
to see,
sense.
the team that I would want to see him go to the most. But I don't know if maybe the Tigers are getting cold feet because they signed Javier Baez and he's been pretty lackluster for them.
Yeah.
So maybe I don't think Bregman is the same kind of player. I think Bregman has shown what he is. I think Baez always had the swing and miss, and as he gets worse, the swing and miss is going to get worse. Bregman doesn't have those kind of problems. He just has, I think, old age wearing him down. But I definitely think the Tigers are the best fit. A young team that made the playoffs, made a surprising run in the playoffs. And I think Bregman adds not only leadership, playoff experience, and I think something that every young player in that team could learn from. Another team that I really like for Bregman would be the Red Sox. I think for the Red Sox, it would just be signing a veteran bat to a team that's, I think, ready to take that next step into being a consistent playoff team.
Yeah.
Because they have the prospects coming up. He could maybe help with some of them, just nurture them and bring them into the MLB environment. And I think he's just somebody who works. I think the only problem with the Red Sox is where do they play him? What do they do with Rafael Devers? What do they do with first base? But I think once you sign a bat like Bregman, you just let everything figure itself out. You don't worry about where he's going to play. You just make sure his name is in the lineup, and everything else will work itself out over the course of a long season.
That's an excellent point with the Red Sox. They do feel like a fit. So It's going to be interesting. When it's going to happen. Does he wait until spring training? Is it like a last minute signing we kind of saw last year with JD Martinez? So, but that's an excellent point with the Red Sox. I definitely could see them as well. I'm not a big Red Sox fan, so I don't want to see him go there. I'd like to see him go to the Tigers, but if I had to guess, it's between Boston, it's between Detroit, and Chicago's kind of my wild card team.
Yeah, and so my next topic here that we're gonna look into is the Marlins offseason, just because we have FanFest coming up this Saturday, and I don't know who's out there gonna attend. I plan on attending. I think it's gonna be. I mean, for what the team has done this year, you might not be that excited, but I always find it fun to get out to the ballpark, especially when you can do it for free,
Right, yeah,
and meet
absolutely.
and meet a lot of the players and just see what's out there. I mean, it's to me, whether the team is good or bad, I enjoy being at the stadium.
Absolutely.
I love the game, and that's just how I am. But today they tweeted out their lineup, if you will, for FanFest, and the one thing that caught my eye is that they're gonna be making an announcement for the new City Connect.
I did see that.
What do we think, or what do we want them to do?
Right.
Because I'm currently wearing the City Connect, the old City Connect.
Yeah. So honestly, the old City Connect, I wasn't a huge fan. They were fine, but a lot of people loved the red. I didn't really feel like that was Marlins colors. I want them to go to a teal, some version of teal and black, like the old uniforms. But I don't know. I'm really excited to find out what it's going to be because you know how it is when a team designs their uniform. They incorporate so many different like factors of their history and the city. So it's exciting. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I'm thinking more of like what the Braves did, with their City Connect, that they have like the old,
Right.
like vintage style. And some people will say that's boring, not because they don't like it, but they don't feel the creativity is there and all that. But I think if you go on Twitter, you see a lot of Marlins fans that would be very happy
Yeah.
if they just brought back Florida Marlins. Like a lot of fans just wish they never left that behind.
Yeah.
I I don't disagree either. I think the Marlins would be a bigger brand with it, and I think they should piggyback off of that. And their new City Connect should be in the teal, along with I don't know some sort of like homage to the Florida Marlins.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. And I think if I had to guess, that's what they'll do because there's so many fans who want that uniform back. And they didn't get it with the Sugar Kings uniform, so maybe this time around they will. But
Yeah,
it's exciting.
well, we'll see. I mean, definitely, if you're a Marlins fan out there, or even just a baseball fan, and you like the City Connect concept, stay tuned for FanFest. I'm sure the minute they announce that FanFest, you're gonna see a ton of people posting it on Twitter who are there,
Absolutely.
and the Marlins are gonna drop like the whole video. They probably have a whole like promo thing ready to announce that. So
Yeah,
I'm definitely excited for FanFest. Um, and yeah, I mean, I'll definitely be there. So let's see what happens at FanFest.
definitely.
Yeah, and I mean, moving into more off-season talks, I thought of this idea just because we saw. I'm gonna use this as my starting point for this topic, but we saw Max Scherzer head to the Blue Jays, which I think was the most random thing ever. And I forget his full name right now. I'm trying to look him up on Twitter, but Lewis, the guy who does a lot of the pitching stuff on Twitter for like a lot of like pitching stuff, and his favorite pitcher is Clayton Kershaw. He said it would be funny, like it's gonna be funny reading Max Scherzer's Hall of Fame plaque, and at the bottom it's gonna say Blue Jays 2025.
Yeah, I saw that one.
So to me, that was like one of the big surprising moves of the offseason. But what are some moves that have surprised you?
That's a good question. I agree with you on the Max Scherzer. I did not expect that. I think earlier in the offseason, A couple moves that surprised me. This was a couple months ago when the Angels signed Yusei Kikuchi and Jorge Soler, and they just kind of reinvested into the major league product and put some money into the lineup and in the pitching staff coming off of 99 loss season. I think that surprised me. I did not expect them to be that active in free agency.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely other moves that I think were a little surprising, like Santander going
Yeah,
to
to
the Blue
Toronto.
Jays. I'm not necessarily surprised he went to Toronto. That kind of feels like the kind of move they would make in a way. But I just really thought the Orioles would have brought him back. That's where I stand with that one.
It's one of those things where you knew he was going to get a lot of money, and I just don't think the Orioles were ever going to seriously consider investing in him because they don't spend a lot of money historically on big contracts like that. And the last big contract that I can really think of was the Chris Davis contract, so maybe that scared them off a little bit.
Yeah, I also think that probably I think most people would say, like I did, the Max Scherzer move is the most surprising. But I honestly think the most surprising is Luis Severino going to the now Sacramento
Oh
A's
yeah, yeah.
because to
That
me,
yeah.
I think it's surprising not because he went to the A's, because if they were still in Oakland with the ballpark, I'd be like, okay, that makes sense.
Right.
But to not only leave New York, but now you're going to play in a minor league stadium in Sacramento is kind of interesting to me.
Yeah, I was surprised at that too. Like that slipped my mind, but I mean, Luis Severino and the A's, they spent quite a bit of money. I want to say it was $60 million or so. It was a decent size
Yeah, they've been
contract,
spending a
and
lot.
they've been spending a lot. They extended Brent Rooker, so Severino. It's good for them. Their fans deserve it, especially with the whole drama of leaving the city of Oakland. It's a real shame.
I mean, speaking of Oakland, I think they had you can say White Sox because they lost because they broke the record for most losses, but I think in terms of like it actually hurting, I think the Oakland fans had it the worst. They
Yeah,
not only lost their team, then in the offseason, Ricky Henderson passes away. I mean, what can the baseball gods like chill out on them and give them a
right.
break?
Yeah, no, it's been tough. It's bad ownership, man. It comes down to bad ownership. And John Fisher is not a good owner, and the city has to pay and the fans have to pay.
Yeah.
But at least they spent some money this offseason.
And since we're now busy talking about offseason moves, um, and I forgot to mention this in the Marlins segment that we did a little earlier, but what about their lack of moves, I guess, in the offseason?
It's frustrating, but it's expected. I'm not going to get on Twitter or in the podcast and say why haven't they spent anything, because I know why. They're rebuilding. It's frustrating, but this is what's happening right now. We know Bruce Sherman doesn't like to spend money, and it doesn't take away from the fact that it's pathetic. It's pathetic that your only fully guaranteed or full major league contract has been Tim Anderson over the last two off seasons for $5 million. Like, that's just so sad. But they're not going to do anything. They might go out and sign one or two veteran starters. There was an article from the Miami Herald talking about that.
Yeah.
Time will tell. I'm going to believe it when I see it, because I've heard this time and time again about the Marlins possibly spending money and then it doesn't happen. So we'll see, but there's no guarantees with this team right now.
Yeah, that's definitely it. I mean, there's just no guarantees. I do understand that they won't spend big money right now, but it's also to me the fact that they're not spending any money right now on
Yeah.
anything. Like they spent a lot of their offseason hiring a bunch of front office guys, which I never want to be the one to hate on those things. Like maybe it's helping in ways that we as the fans don't see it.
Right.
But I think it's just, I mean, if you're not going to spend now when you could probably get some decent players for relatively cheap, where do we stand to believe that they're going to spend when it matters?
Yeah, it's just I don't think it's their model anymore. They want to be like Tampa Bay. They want to build this system from within where they don't spend on free agents and everything. They make smart trades and their player development system is top notch. The issue is Tampa Bay just does it so well and they've been doing it for so long. It's not as simple as copy paste. And right now the Marlins have to make sure they hit on these trades and develop these prospects that they've acquired, because if you don't, then you're just going to be in a lot of trouble for the future and the rebuild gets extended even further. So will they spend when the time comes? It depends. I don't think they're going to sign, a Matt Chapman level contract from, the Giants or Willie Adames. They're not going to be spending $100 million+ on a contract. So it's unfortunate because in an ideal world, you'd have the player development system supplemented by an owner that can afford players, but that's not what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, their only move has really been, well, since Peter Bendix took over, is Tim Anderson.
Right.
And I feel like they could get another contract similar to Tim Anderson for a better player. And they haven't done that yet.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think letting the young guys play, because like who would you sign? Is it going to be someone to replace Connor Norby, Xavier Edwards, Otto Lopez? Like I think the Marlins are at the point right now they just want to let the young guys play and see what they got in house, which I understand, but the issue really started at the end of 2023 when they decided we're not going to improve the major league team. We're just going to wait and then rebuild. That's the true issue. But it's 2 years later. We gotta focus on the future, and it sucks, but that's where we are at.
Yeah, and they really, right now, I think, are waiting for these prospects to be ready to
Yeah,
hit the major league level. And you have to hope that they're worth what you traded for them. Not all of them, I think, were traded for a lot of star power. But I mean, when you trade away Arias and you trade away Jazz, players that already proved what they are at the major league
right.
level, and you're getting just only prospects in return, you kind of want those guys to at least become
Absolutely,
something. They don't have to
absolutely.
be superstar level,
But they've got to
just
pan out. Otherwise,
they have to work.
you're a mess. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think this season 2025 is going to be a lot of that. I think there's going to be a lot of moving pieces for this team. I find it very difficult to say one player is going to play one position for the whole year. I feel like we might see a lot of moving parts. The only one I can feel like is going to be in the lineup every day consistently and has a job every day is from the position players is probably going to be Connor Norby and
Hmm.
maybe Nick Fortes just because they like him as a catcher behind the plate. And he's used to catching a lot of these guys that are in the rotation right now.
I could see Xavier Edwards and Otto Lopez kind of being established at their positions for this season. I think the question is the outfield. There's a lot of guys in the outfield who will be competing in spring training. So I'm excited for that. Jesus Sanchez, Griffin Conine, Kyle Stowers, Derek Hill. There's a long list of guys that played last year but haven't really had an entire season to prove themselves, except for Sanchez. He's like the veteran of the group.
Yeah, Sanchez is definitely the veteran of the group. I mean, I'm waiting for the moment that he takes his next step forward and we get consistent power out of him.
Yeah,
I mean, 20 homer power. I mean, I'm not asking 25, 30. I'm just saying 20. If you can
right.
have 2, 3 seasons where you hit 20 homers, that's an improvement to what you've been doing, I think, in the past. Maybe, I mean, the ideal number would be getting him to 25, 30.
Absolutely.
Because, I mean, we've seen it. Every time he hits a home run, it's gone. I
But
mean,
once he starts doing that, he's gonna get traded.
that is the worry everyone
That's
has.
the key.
The minute he starts playing a little better, he's
Yeah.
he's on the trade block.
Yeah.
That's everyone's worry. But who knows? I
But
mean,
I agree with you.
I would like to see the Marlins try what the Braves did, and if you have a younger player,
Extend him.
extend him. And I mean, because the Braves did really well with that. They have a ton of players that
Oh
should be
yeah.
getting paid 10 times more than they are, like Acuna, Albies. Who did they do? Did they do it with Riley? I'm not sure, but
They did Riley, Michael Harris. They're really good at what they do.
I mean,
And
it's they're gonna have to maybe make some decisions once those contracts are up,
that's true.
but you kind of get them for a lot of their prime with what they did, and
100%. And they won a
I
World Series.
and they won a World Series with it. So I mean, I think the Marlins need to. I understand people saying they got Peter Bendix and they're gonna do the Rays model. I think the Marlins need to take a look around the league and steal from other teams too, not just the Rays.
I
They're not.
agree. That's an excellent point. That is great because everybody has analytics departments. Everybody does player development their own way. Everybody has a farm system. So, how are you going to be unique? And at some point, yes, you do have to spend. So, you can't just follow one team and copycat them and expect to be like them necessarily. It takes a lot of luck and a lot of
Yeah,
skill.
yeah, and then I mean another team to point to would be the Dodgers this offseason.
Oh man.
I mean, um, on a lot of my social medias, I've been seeing like memes where, because if you don't know, the Dodgers are basically signing everybody in, and I've seen a lot of memes where people like put like a fictional character who's like really powerful, and then they say that like the Dodgers signed them. So I mean, it's pretty funny. Like somebody said they got Darth Vader.
Yeah.
So I mean, nobody's gonna compete with what the Dodgers are doing, in my opinion.
Yeah, I on paper, this team should win the World Series. This
Yeah,
team should set the record for the most games won in a season. But it's on paper. And at the end of the day, when you get into the postseason, everybody wants that championship and it takes execution. So you can't pencil them as champions, but they've definitely won the offseason. I mean, they're signing elite players who are going to make impact in addition to the talent they already have. So the Dodgers are absolute force right now in baseball. It's probably the best offseason I've ever seen.
definitely. But the way I see it with the Dodgers is that other teams in the league aren't going to necessarily replicate what they do for many reasons. I think they have an advantage of signing the the MPB players, the Japanese players or the players
Mm-hmm.
that come from Asia, because I think when you look at it geographically, a lot of them are like closer, I guess, to home when they're in LA. And it's like when you sign Otani, who's the biggest, in my opinion, biggest influence for Japanese baseball outside of Ichiro, I think it's easy for other players just to look at the Dodgers and be like, that's where I want to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And now moving forward, now they have Rory Sasaki and Otani. So they'd feel comfortable there. The fan base welcomes them with open arms. And if you don't like it, you got to beat them. Like if these other teams, Padres fans complaining, Braves, whoever that is competitive, go out and beat them. Because again, the game's going to be played on the field, on the diamond, and you'll have your opportunity.
Definitely. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with like a lot of you see on social media that people say it's a problem for the game. I
Right.
think you need to look at the other teams and be like, why aren't you trying to do the same thing? You might not
That's a
have.
good point. Yeah, you might not have all the resources, but you could have signed Tanner Scott. You didn't have to let him go to the Dodgers, you know?
Yeah. So
You
I
might
mean,
not want I don't know, you might not be able to afford an Otani contract, but you can give the Padres could have extended Tanner Scott if that's what they wanted, but they haven't done anything. They've subtracted. So I don't really want to hear it from Padres fans about the Dodgers that they're the ones doing it. They're the ones spending the money and they're the defending champs and honestly, they have every right to talk.
yeah. And I think another way that teams can kind of compete with the Dodgers is keep your players that you already have in house. Like
Hmm.
the Padres, for example, they have his name is leaving me. Their center fielder,
Jackson Merrill.
Jackson Merrill. Why not
Yep.
extend him?
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
like
excellent point.
I mean, you saw the Brewers extend Churios before he even played a game in the MLB. I
Right.
mean, it turned out well for them. He played really well last year. Other teams need to do the same thing. I feel like the Marlins, even though they're a team that's not going to compete directly with the Dodgers, but do the same thing with your young guys. I don't know. So I'll reach out to Norby, give him an extension. Reach
Yeah.
out to Edwards, give him an extension. Doesn't have to be long. These guys have improved a lot.
Right.
Other teams can compete that way, is what I think. Just extend the young players you already have.
Definitely.
That's just how I view it. And I think it's because a lot of people are saying we need a salary floor or a salary cap. I don't think it's going to fix every problem that people think it will.
Yeah, you know, I never really got on that train because the issue with the salary floor and the salary cap is it's just going to provide another excuse for a team to be like we're not competitive and it could just there's just a bunch of issues that could take place and I don't think it's going to change ownership. You can't change an owner's attitude. Like Bruce Sherman suddenly isn't going to be like, let's go above and beyond. He'll meet the minimum and that's it. So I don't know. And until then, the Dodgers will keep doing Dodgers things. But like you said, extending your young talent, that is one way to combat that. Is don't let them get to the point where they become a free agent. So, you know.
Yeah, that is a way of doing it. And another big part of this offseason, I don't know how much you've kept up with it, but it's been a lot of international baseball being played. We currently have the Caribbean series going on. Right then after that, we're gonna have the WBC qualifiers happening, which I'm gonna be paying a lot of attention to because Nicaragua's playing. That's where my family's from, and anytime I get to root for them, I love it. So I'll definitely be waking up early because they're playing in Taiwan, and be watching all of those games. But yeah, I mean, how do you feel about like the World Baseball Classic and all of that international play?
I love the World Baseball Classic. Like it's awesome. It's a great environment. I wish it wasn't every 4 years, you know. I wish it was every 2 years or something cuz it was that good and that exciting. It felt like everyone cared. The eyes of every baseball fan were on it. So it's exciting. International baseball is really at a good spot, I think, moving forward. You see so many players that come over, yes, from the Latin countries, but Japan. We see players come in from Italy. I believe the Angels, one of their pitchers is Italian. So anytime the sport of baseball gets is grown in popularity, especially in foreign countries, I think it's good.
And how would you like? I agree. You know, there's a lot of really good aspects that come from it, and one of the biggest things that caught my attention in the last World Baseball Classic, I think it was the Czech Republic team. I'm gonna need someone to fact check me on that, but I'm pretty sure they were a bunch of like dudes that
Yeah,
had day
no, that
jobs.
was it.
They had day jobs and they would just play baseball at night or whenever they had free time, and they qualified and they made it.
Yeah, it's awesome. That's
I
why
mean,
we love the sports. The underdog story right there.
I don't. To be honest, I don't think they did very well in their group necessarily, but I mean, it's the fact that they even qualified, not being professional players against other teams' best.
Right. Yeah, no,
So,
I remember that story and I was like, wow, that's unbelievable.
but I've definitely asked this question throughout my time on Twitter and stuff. But what do you think is better in terms of atmosphere, quality of play, and tournament play? Because now the MLB playoffs feel like a mini tournament in a way, the way they've
Yeah.
expanded them. The World Baseball Classic or the MLB playoffs? Which one would you prefer to watch?
Um in terms of atmosphere, the passion for each fan base is the highest it can be. If you're a diehard Marlins fan, Phillies fan, your team's in the World Series, the crowd's rocking, just like last WBC with Japan and US battling it out. I would rather watch the MLB playoffs because I'm imagining the Marlins in that situation in the playoffs, and that's like would be a dream come true. So that's the direction I would lean.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I am the opposite way around. I kind of enjoy the WBC a little more. I like seeing a lot of country representation. You know, you have all these players that come from so many different teams. Like Team USA has Mets players,
Right.
and I don't like the Mets, but I will root for any Mets player that plays for Team USA. I want Team USA to win. I put my bias aside of hating the Mets and what they do to the Marlins every year, and I root for them as a fan of Team USA. And the other one would be like Team Nicaragua. Mark Vientos, he's from Nicaragua. One of his parents are, so he could potentially play for Team Nicaragua, which I really want him to.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I've seen your tweets about that. That'd be great.
yeah, so I mean, to me, it's like, but at the same time, the rebuttal that I get from a lot of people is, well, you're a Marlins fan. You don't see them in the playoffs a lot. So that's maybe why you like the World Baseball Classic more because,
Right.
you have teams there. You have more rooting reasons there, which I think might be a little fair, If the Marlins were in the playoffs more, maybe I'd feel the other way around. But yeah, I just think both are honestly exciting. It's just kind of two different styles in a way.
Exactly. No, you explained that perfectly. It's two different styles of really exciting baseball, ultimately.
Yeah. And one thing that I do want to mention I have written down in my notes is what I'm looking at right now in my notebook is that the WBC qualifiers for anybody out there who wants to watch will be streamed for free on the World Baseball Classic YouTube channel. So you don't need to worry about having any like MLB Network, none of that. You can watch it straight off of their website. I believe it won't be like country locked. I'm not too sure, but at least in the United States where I'm from, you'll be able to watch it for free on YouTube. So that's honestly pretty cool. And I don't know. I just think international baseball is really fun. The 2026 WBC is going to be great. I'm really excited to see that. Coming up next year. I know they're going to be playing, like always, games at Marlins Park. So I'm going to try to get out there and watch some of those games. And we just keep on moving along. I think last thing to mention is we're, 50 days away from opening day?
Yeah, it's
I
right
think it
around the
was.
corner.
It's right around the corner. I believe pitchers and catchers already started reporting to some
Next week.
facility. Yeah, I think some might already
Oh,
be there.
you might be right.
Yeah, I think some might have already been there on their own. Um, but to wrap up this episode quickly here at the end, I'm gonna throw out a few like quick questions, and you kind of just answer off the top of your head as you think, and then I'll give mine at the end after. But
Cool.
World Series prediction, like two teams that make it, who wins?
No, I gotta go Dodgers. I gotta go Dodgers as the champions. I think they are going to face off against I'm going to go Yankees again until proven otherwise. I think it's going to be Dodgers-Yankees in a rematch, but give me the Dodgers to win.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to do the same thing. It's an easy pick, but I'm picking definitely the Dodgers. From the American League, I think it becomes a little more of a fight. You
Yeah, I
know,
agree.
I think it's kind of interesting. I mean, maybe the Yankees are the favorites right now, but I don't know. I mean, I really don't have a clear prediction for the American League. I have a tough time picking a team out of the American League. The next question would be, who's a player you're most excited to see return that was probably either out last year or just didn't play last year?
Hmm. So for new players, I'm excited to see Rory Sasaki. I think he's got some of the best pure stuff in all of baseball. Just looking at his splitter and his fastball, so I want to see how he handles the Major League Baseball stage, if you will, and in the biggest organization in the planet. So give me Rory Sasaki.
Yeah, I think Sasaki is probably a lot of people's pick too for that question. But I'm honestly interested to see how he adapts to the MLB like ball,
Right.
because I've heard in the past that players who get to play overseas in Japan like the Japanese ball better, especially pitchers. I think it helps with spin. It's something to do with the seams. I don't know if they're like lowered or raised, but it's something to do with the seams, is what I've heard. Um, for my pick, I'm gonna go biased, but I'm picking Sandy Alcantara. The
Oh
shirt that I'm
yeah.
currently wearing has Alcantara in the back, so I'm honestly just excited. He comes
No,
back.
I can't wait for that one. I can't believe I didn't say that.
Yeah, he comes back opening day,
Oh, it's gonna be
and
awesome.
I think it's just gonna be fun. Like, you know, no matter what, how the season goes, I think at the end of the day, getting to watch him pitch gives me a similar feeling to when I would watch Jose Fernandez take the ball every fifth day. You
Yep.
knew the team wasn't that great. You knew they weren't super competitive, but you always knew you had to make sure to watch when they were throwing. You never knew what could happen.
100%.
And moving on to the last and final question as we wrap up this episode, MVP and Cy Young predictions. You
Ooh.
can go. You can. I'll give you the option. You can go NL, AL, or just give like a league MVP and a league Cy Young, however you want to do it.
I'll start with the NL. That's a good question. Um, Man, MVP. Give me. Let's see. Otani won last year. In the NL, it was well deserved. I don't want to. I don't want to say he's gonna win again because that's just too easy. So I'm gonna go with the dark horse here. I'm gonna go Acuna returns healthy, hits 40-70, 40 homers, 70 stolen bases, and
I'm
wins
gonna,
the
I'm
MVP.
gonna stop you right there and say if he does that
That'd be
after
insane.
the same surgery on the other leg, I think he's automatic Hall of Fame.
It's up there. Oh
I
yeah,
I think.
definitely. And then Cy Young. Hmm. There's a lot of good pitchers. I want to go Corbin Burns in Arizona. I like what Arizona did. I think he's gonna have a big season. And in American League MVP Gunnar Henderson for Baltimore. And man, AL Cy Young. I really like the Mariners pitching staff. Really like the Mariners pitching staff. Give me Brian Wu. This is the wild card. Brian Wu of the Mariners. Look out. He's gonna have a big season.
Those are definitely some great picks. I would not disagree with them. But as for my picks here in, I'm gonna start with the AL just because I have a player off the top of my head for MVP. I'm picking easily Bobby Wood Jr.
That's a great one.
I think last year he would have had it if it wasn't for Judge existing.
Yeah, no, 100%.
I
Every
mean,
any other year he wins it.
it's just crazy that you have an MVP season and when you look at least the record books, people are gonna ask, how did 2024 Bobby Wick Jr. not win
Mm-hmm.
the MVP? But then you're gonna have to look at Judge and you're gonna be like, okay, it makes sense. As for American League Cy Young, that's a really tough one, I think, to pick. Because there was definitely a lot of moving pieces in the American League, but I'm trying to think here because there's a lot of good pitching there. I think I'm gonna have to piggyback off what you said with the Mariners and go with one of their starters. Somebody like a Brian Wu is a good pick,
George
but
Kirby.
George Kirby is there. I don't remember, is Castillo still there?
Yep, he's still there for
Yeah,
now.
I'm gonna pencil down Castillo.
I like it. I
That's
like
my
it.
pick. And when you go to the National League, I'm gonna make it real simple for Cy Young and pick Paul Skeens.
Oh yeah,
I mean, it's kind of crazy to say player, a pitcher
that
in the
young.
second, that young and in their second season, being the Cy Young, but I think it's just a safe pick.
I'm gonna change my pick. Can I change my pick to Paul
You can
Skeens?
change. You can change it
Yeah,
to
Paul
Paul.
Skeens is amazing, man. I
Yeah,
was so stoked when he made his debut, and I'm not even a Pirates fan, but I just love watching Paul Skeens. It's incredible, you know.
yeah. And for MVP, I think immediately you think of all the players in the Dodgers because they have Freddie Freeman,
Right.
Mookie Betts, Otani. But honestly, I'm gonna move away from them. I'm gonna make probably a very dark horse pick, maybe even a hot take pick, and I'm gonna go over to the other side of town, if you will, with the Padres, or the other city in LA, if you will, or in California, and I'm gonna pick Tatis.
I like it. I like it.
He, I think, was a little disappointing last year. After he like got suspended and then he came back, and all this like from 2023, and he wasn't terrible, but I think Padres fans just expected more from him, and I think we're definitely, I'm at least gonna expect him to really bounce back.
That's a great pick.
He doesn't have to worry about coming off of a suspension of any kind. He can have a normal off season and continue what has done in the past. So my
Exactly.
pick is gonna be Tatis.
Good pick.
Yeah, that's where I think we'll leave off the episode. You guys can go ahead and answer your um, answers in the comments below. If you want me to repeat the questions, I will. So the first one is your World Series prediction, a player you're most excited to see return, MVP and Cy Young predictions. And yeah, make sure to subscribe here on Box the Base. This was episode 1. This is your home for baseball and boxing. And share it on any social media. And make sure to follow Box the Base on all your socials, Twitter,